Brave Space podcast. Brave Space is a healing place for gun violence prevention professionals and survivors. I am here in Newark, New Jersey with the Newark Community Street Team, and I'm joined by one of their staff. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Angelica. I presently serve as the director of the Trauma Recovery Center at Newark Community Street Team.
Nice. So, Angelica, we were introduced by Ray Chavis, who is the executive director of NCST, or Newark Community Street Team. And he recommended you to interview for our podcast. Why do you think he may have suggested you to interview?
Well, my lived experience, but Ray likes to say I'm one of the OGs of the organization. I've been with NCST for about 7 years now.
Nice. So you've been with the organization 7 years in different roles, or what's your current role?
I presently serve as the director of the Trauma Recovery Center, but I've served across the organization. I actually started when I was in college. I was getting my degree in anthropology, and I had just left a research position that got shut down, unfortunately, in a drug den in the South Bronx. And Akila was familiar with my work and brought me on. I served as a community health worker in the Hospital Violence Intervention Program, Special Projects Program Manager, and then ultimately started with the TRC and have worked my way up to becoming director.
Nice. So director of the Trauma Recovery Center. That's like a big role. That's a major role, actually. Are you from Newark originally?
I am. I'm from the Northward, so around the Branch Brook Park area, and I was educated in Newark up until high school, went to school in Montclair, so still super local, and then went to New York for my undergraduate degree and came back to New Jersey for my graduate degree.
So born, raised, educated.
Living.
Yes. So you love it here?
I do.
Yeah?
I do.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite things or even favorite memories about Newark, growing up in Newark?
The summer, I was just telling my mom this, there's something about the shift from winter to spring and then spring into summer when the parks are being used. We have the Cherry Blossom Festival, the street bikes are outside, the sound when people are outside just in community. The city is so lively. You have so many different ethnic enclaves, so many different celebrations. It's just like seeing people and seeing the greenery come back. I love it every year. I look forward to it. I really do look forward to it.
Change in seasons. Yeah. So I'm up here during the winter, so it's a mix of like very cold, very rainy, but hopefully I get to experience the festivals because I like festivals. Yeah. What would you say, like if you had to describe the neighborhood and the community that you grew up in, what was it like for you?
So I grew up in, dare I say, maybe a bit more of a gentrified area of Newark. It's definitely gentrifying now more. My parents are second-generation homeowners, so they bought the home from my grandparents. And I grew up in Northwood, which is like more Hispanic, densely populated. But I also grew up really sheltered, so I didn't understand the dynamics of the city. Newark always felt safe to me, and I mean, it still does feel safe to me. I never heard about any of the violence or anything going on. It wasn't until I started working here that I understood some of the issues that plague the city. But I had a great time in Newark. I loved it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I grew up in a super residential area. Really nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to hear like more details about that shift because a lot of the people who I interview, many of them are like born and raised and grow up in neighborhoods that do experience violence, or at least they have some level of exposure to violence. So, but what was that experience like for you growing up in a community that felt, I don't know if you would describe it as safe, but did it feel safe, or how would you describe it?
It always felt safe, and the thing is, there were one-off things. Like when my last sister was born, we were hanging out with her and my uncle was watering the grass outside and was held up at gunpoint. So I don't want to say that we were completely untouched by forms of violence or trauma, right? But my parents, they both met in Newark and they both lived in the Southward, and they were both exposed to violence, and they were exposed to some the systemic inequities and things like that, and everything that went on. And so they made it a conscious effort that when they raised their daughters, that we would be sheltered. Because my dad can still point out places. He lived actually on the border of Irvington, and my mom, when she first came to America. My grandparents also lived in the South Ward. And so we'll drive through and they'll be like, oh, do you remember this place and this place? And this is where my family was. And this is where my aunt and uncle stayed. This is where we got pizza. But they also tell us about like, hey, this was a really hot spot for drugs, or like, these are areas you don't go to after dark. And so it wasn't until my early adulthood that those things kind of came out. Growing up, it was like, it's just home. It's safe. You knew not to leave your car on. We got a lot of stolen cars.
Yes.
One of our neighbors got raided by the FBI because he was a big time drug trafficker. So we weren't like, I wasn't completely removed from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my parents did their best to create a very safe space for me and my sisters.
Yeah. Did they like describe to you why they may have like, told you to stay away from certain places, or like how did that whole process of them keeping you safe, even though there were dangers, right? But what was that process like? Like how did they communicate safety to you?
Just transparency and honesty. For them it was, hey, this is what goes on. Just because we're safe here doesn't mean like that the world is safe, and not in a way that's like anxiety inducing, right? But just being honest with you about what's happening around you. And in that they also share their own lived experiences. My dad with his friends, my mom growing up. It was kind of like we knew. I never came to the South Ward as regularly as I do now. My parents would drive through and stuff, but they definitely made it a point to keep me involved in activities and things like tied to academics and stuff.
Yeah. What is the South Ward neighborhood like? What is that community like?
I love it.
Yeah.
I do. I've grown to love it. I feel safe. Unironically, I feel safer here than I do in like other new places that I go to. It's community driven. It's community focused. People understand one another. Like there's this beauty in like, okay, we can say statistically like it is perhaps a little bit more lower income, right? We have more ethnic minorities living here. We can put all of that forward facing, but people here like make it despite all challenges, and that is so cool. Like working in the South, where you just see people show up every day and just keep pushing forward. It's a beautiful mixture of cultures. We have people that are immigrants, people that are American, right? People that are second generation American, first generation. We just have a huge mix, and it's predominantly low income, but that doesn't really change anything. I like it. It's a cool area. Our neighbors next door are amazing. They are great guys. Yeah.
What would you say is like, what's one thing that stands out to you about community? Like even when you say that term community, like what's one thing that stands out for you?
We don't let each other fail. And failure looks differently, right? With the work at the TRC, a big part of it is when we believe in community, we believe in not saying no. We don't allow each other to not get something accomplished. It may not be within the next hour, the next day, the next week, but we're going to keep on fighting the good fight, and we don't believe in failure. We don't believe in stopping. And that's really what keeps us going, is like everybody has their own mission, their own values, their own goals, right? But we work together to make sure that they're accomplished.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about like how you actually were introduced to NCST.
So I had moved to New York for college. I was in college at the Macaulay Honors College at John Jay in Manhattan, and I was doing work in the South Bronx, doing harm reduction work in a drug den. My mom just about lost her mind. She's like, you need steel-toe boots, you need this, you need that. I was like, I'm having the time of my life. Like, this is so cool. I didn't realize you could do this kind of work.
Yes.
Like, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, So my mom at the time was working for a nonprofit called Newark Tech World. It's over on Hunterdon, and it was in the former, I think, Boys and Girls Club building. So my grandfather had passed, my grandfather had cancer. My mom had left her job to care for my grandfather, but she's like, savings are gone, gotta go back to work, my dad was working at the time. So she was like, let me see if I can take something on super small. Well, they love Daisy so much. They love Daisy so much so that Aquila got to Daisy and she started doing like their payroll and slowly started growing with NCST. And I came home crying one day. I was like, they shut down my research. I don't know what I want to do. I felt like my whole career was over. I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, hey, I work for NCST. Like, there's an opening for a hospital violence intervention program. Like, it's part-time right now. Like, is that? I was like, whatever I can do to keep my professional experience going. I'm really neurotic about like ensuring that I am a well-rounded professional. So I came in, I gave Akil my resume. I was working at the movie theater at the time, in Chelsea. And he's like, so you're starting? And I said, okay. He goes, next week. And I was like, okay. And he goes, yeah, like, you're going to get to know this person. I was like, okay. And I go, Akila, I do have to make sure I like let the movie theater know I'm not going to be there. He's like, no, you're quitting today. Like don't go back. Yeah. And I was like, huh? Because I had friends at the movie theater, but it was a movie theater versus like potentially a career starting, position. And so that's like professionally, that's how I came to the work. I think that personally I wanted to be a lawyer, ended up being a social worker, therapist, because I just believe that people are better than the worst thing they've ever done. Like, I have a firm belief in people. I don't know. Even, like, the worst criminals out there, I feel like, are better than the worst thing they've ever done. And I have a belief in, like, healing and ensuring that that's, like, barrier-free and culturally competent and, like, people can exist and get along with each other. And so that's always driven my career choices, but NCST has definitely been the place where I've been allowed to grow and thrive and really figure out like what that looked like for me.
Nice. So when you first took the job, what did you think you would be doing versus like what you actually learned and grew into as your role? Like, did you kind of come in green? What were you thinking when you started?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, listen, I was living, I don't know if you're familiar with New York. I was living off of Austin Street in Queens.
Okay.
I was in Forest Hills, Queens, like sheltered life, private high school. Just me and my friends in New York. The world was my oyster. When I came to NCST, I was in shock.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, no, like everything to me felt like my struggles and my everyday things were really minimal. I knew when I started the hospital violence intervention program, obviously it was hospital based, I didn't know what I was walking into. Going bedside and seeing some of the strongest, toughest men that I've ever met, right? Shot and just like struggling to get up. It's like, wow, like this, like there's, I think when we think about like gun violence and then safety in the community, it's one thing to talk about gun violence and people shooting each other, but like HVIP taught me more than that. It taught me about like the structural inequities and the structural violence and the decision making that forces people to be put into these positions to be affected by gun violence, right? And so that part like shocked me. I know the case management part, anybody can push paperwork, right? But I didn't realize that in having this position, I would have to confront and deal with like a lot of my own traumas and like a lot of stuff that I went through as a child. And I think I like to credit the people that I've worked with at NCST, my colleagues, and even my clients for helping me figure out my healing journey, because just as much as like I help people, like they've helped me beyond measure.
Yeah. And you pointed out such a good point that there's often a discrepancy between what we learn in school about how to help people, whether that's in social work, whether it's in nursing, versus when you're actually bedside with looking someone face to face who has experienced a major trauma, right? There's a lot of things you have to learn basically on the go. So what were some of those early things that you learned? Like, what did you learn to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do? Like, what were some early lessons for you?
Understanding that, and this might sound cliche, but understanding that respect is earned, not given. I'm walking in, like I'm walking in, I'm dressed, like I'm white passing, you know, they're like, who's, like, not to be funny, but like, who's this white lady walking into the room telling me, like, oh, you know, about these services, right? Also understand that, like, there's a time and a place for professional languaging, and by professional languaging I mean like really that clinical cold languaging, and it's okay to have like just casual conversations with clients. Like, don't make them feel like they can't understand what's going on, right? And then the limitations as to what we can and can't do. I couldn't promise my clients the world. You know, they're patients in a hospital. I can't promise you're going to be up and walking next week because, hey, I don't know.
Right.
Some of them were paralyzed. Some of them had to go to rehab for a long amount of time. And over time, it's just like getting to know people. Like, just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay if like you don't know everything. Admit that. They're the experts. They're going to tell you what their healing should look like.
Right. In what ways did you earn their respect? Like, what was that process like?
Introducing myself. I know it sounds funny, but like introducing myself, you can call me Angelica. I don't like the formalities. If somebody were to ask me what I do here, I just work for the TRC. I don't tell people like I'm the director. So that respecting everyone else in the room, like, hey, do you want to include your partner? Do you want to include your support system? Setting time to meet with them and honoring that time. A lot of time we would have shared meals. Just community building around food. I think it's great. The KFC was across the street. It's not a Jollibee, right? But there's a KFC across the street. And so they don't like the hospital food. Hey, I could go across the street, go to KFC, or we could go to IHOP, you know, once you're out, right? And showing them that the support extended beyond the hospital room. You're going to go home? Okay, I'm going to talk to you. Oh, I see in the system that you're going to be at the clinic, you know, across the street for pain management, for physical rehab. I'm going to show up for you, right? I joke with them. I was like, I know where you're at all times. Like, I'm going to show up, right? And making myself available beyond, I know it's probably not the most professionally sound advice, right? But making myself available beyond traditional business hours. Like, there's a boundary, right? I'm not going to answer your phone call maybe at 2 a.m. unless it's an absolute emergency, and I understand that. But hey, if it's 6 o'clock and you're like, oh, I forgot this, I'll call you. Or, you know, I'll pick up your phone call. It's that rapport building. It's not in the beginning. It's throughout the process. And show up. Show up. If I tell you I'm going to get this application processed, I need to show you that this application has been processed, so you know that I'm keeping my word. One of my clients taught me, like, your word is everything.
Yeah, I love that. Your word is everything. You mentioned also white passing. How do you identify, and then how do you overcome that barrier when people find out, like, that you are a woman of color?
So I am Latina, fully Puerto Rican and Ecuadorian, right? And it's always a shock to people. And when I start speaking Spanish, they're like, whoa, where'd that come from? I'm like, well, it was my first language. I still need to speak Spanish at home. Like, it's the only way I communicate with my loved ones that's inclusive. And oftentimes, if a client asks, I'll tell them. If they make the assumption, I'll correct them. But I'm here to help. I can't say that I understand fully the challenges my clients face, because I know I recognize my privilege in the room, but I'm gonna use my privilege to help. I'm not gonna use my privilege to, you know, make things worse for them. But in my email signature, like professionally, my pronouns are she, her, ella, so that people know. I let people know I'm bilingual. And if they ask, I'll share. You know, I always try professionally. I always try to let people know. And my clients, I get a lot of the Puerto Ricans, so they'll tell me,
Which helps.
It does.
I mean, there is a lot of benefit in being able to relate to someone, whether it's based on ethnicity or even just shared language, shared experience, shared neighborhood. You have to be able to relate at some level, especially when it comes to meeting someone at such a vulnerable place, like at the bedside after they've been shot, right? So in your role, it sounds like you were there during the really early phases of building out the HFIP. Is that?
I was like,
was it already established?
It was established, but when they hired me, they were kind of like rebuilding staff. So I was maybe the third or fourth person. in HVIP that wasn't like a project manager. I mean, like a community health worker. Yeah.
What were some of the early challenges of helping to grow and expand the program?
Community partnership and accessibility to client care. I think that in the 7 years since I've been with NCST, just what social services looks like beyond obviously welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, already established systems, it's expanded so much, so much. I mean, NCST alone has expanded to provide multiple different service options, but the biggest part was like ensuring equitable access to healthcare, culturally competent healthcare, local healthcare, trusted healthcare, and by healthcare I don't only mean like physical, I mean like mental health, and ensuring like that services are available to clients, food, utility assistance, transportation, and what does employment look like after I've been shot. All of that, yeah.
Right, which is a huge barrier. So I don't know if you know, but in Atlanta, I work with the youngest survivors of gun violence. So we see them typically, we try to reach them within the first 3 months after they've been discharged in order to provide them therapy. And one of the biggest challenges that I see is when a young person, not only are they going back to the same neighborhood or the same area where their incident happened, but also now they're out of school, right? And because they're out of school, then they have no idea what it looks like to go back to school if they want to go back to school, or what does like a career look like for me? Is that even possible anymore? Like they're asking questions about their identity. Now I have this injury. Like, how do you address that in your practice? Like, how do you even help clients in general to see a pathway towards healing?
That's a great question. And we just had a group with our Survivors Assistance Network talking about how our educational system is not built to support the growth, the healing, the education, the goals of our Black and brown boys and girls. It's really not. And it's really disheartening. But here we teach them that first, we come in and we're trying to survive, right? If we're looking at a trauma-informed perspective on how we do this work, we're not talking about what's wrong with you. You come into our doors and we say, what happened to you? And as we work through that trauma-informed perspective and have healing and intervention services that are also case management, high-risk intervention mediation, advocacy, alternative pathways to healing, we have a paradigm shift where we have a resiliency model. A lot of social workers may think this is a little controversial, but I don't think we do anything special. Yeah. Because I know I have the talents and abilities to make my life what it was, right? I'm a trauma survivor. I know that now I sit here fully licensed with a master's, all of this, right? I have all these things behind me, but it's because I did it. Did I have a support system? Absolutely. But I did it. It was my power that did it, right? And so we give that to our clients as well. We use an empowerment model. Like when you leave the TRC, you are now resilient. You went from surviving to living. There is a life beyond your trauma. And I tell my clients very honestly, you're never going to forget this. There are going to be days where you're going to feel activated and it's going to come back to you. I'm not here to cure you. What I'm here to do is teach you coping mechanisms, tools to put in your toolbox that are healthy and can allow you to live a full life.
Yeah. Is this a model that you all developed in-house, or is there another model that you all use?
For the Trauma Recovery Center? I so wish we developed this model, but I give full credit to Dr. Alicia Bossolari and her team in San Francisco. So we use the model developed by San Francisco General and the University of San Francisco, California, and they developed this model, which is a dual model, which brings survivors of trauma into the therapeutic care while also providing them case management services, knowing that no trauma survivor is going to look to get services when they can't keep the lights on, pay their bills, have housing insecurity, food insecurity, or anything of that nature. So we have case managers and clinicians that work in tandem to address all needs for clients.
How long are clients provided services, like once they contact your team?
They are provided services for up to 8 months. And I should say that's really 32 sessions. Sometimes our clients, towards the end, when they know that 32 is coming up, they'll move to like bi-weekly or monthly because they're not ready to break up or have that termination with their clinician. And I completely get it.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in therapy for 5 years. So like I'm not ready to leave my therapist.
Right.
So I know I wouldn't be ready to leave within 8 months. They're always welcome to come back though.
So they can come back.
They can.
Okay, so that's good. That's good. What would you say are like some of your biggest wins in your role?
I think the biggest is that's a hard question. One of the biggest is having a team. I am nothing without the people on my team. Like nothing. There wouldn't be a need for a director role if there weren't people on the team. Just having a multifaceted team, multidisciplinary team, people that can show up with life going on around them, right? And provide healing services to individuals in different languages, different modalities, both telehealth and in person, and that trust me to lead and trust me to get the work done. Biggest one is just having a team. I would also say it's the people in the community. We would be nothing. Forget about me. Like the program would be nothing if people didn't believe in this work. And the craziest thing is I'll have clients text me like, "Hey, Angelica, I know we're meeting today at 5, but you know, my friend just called me and this happened to them and they really need a therapist. I told them about you and your team, you know, can I refer them?" And they filled out the referral form. So we transitioned from having referrals in-house to referrals in-house and community partners, now referrals in-house from community partners and from clients who trust us with the work. And it's been over 1,000 individuals and families that we've served. Yeah, it's just, wow, like we've worked in the community to destigmatize mental health care. We have so many men that come to us, Black men come to us for mental health care. I jump for joy when I see that. It's like, it's huge. Part of my research was on like hegemonic masculinity and structural violence, right? And talking about like that emotional vulnerability. Like how difficult is it for men to like break down that emotional vulnerability and sit with a clinician and share their stories and some of the things that have deeply hurt them. I am always like so honored to seek care with us.
Yeah. We were actually talking about that in one of the sessions earlier, because we're actually here in Jersey for the CBI Action Plan convening, which we're both participating in, so shameless plug. We were talking about how men can feel really vulnerable in this space because, you know, part of the work of interrupting gun violence is that you have to have a certain level of strength and, you know, even just a presence about you that doesn't necessarily speak to vulnerability, right? Because you have to go before high-risk individuals, right? You have to be credible. There's so many layers to it. But at the same time, their lived experience is what makes them credible. But it's also what adds to their vulnerability. So it's a really tough balance. So to hear you say that there are Black men coming in and feeling like this is a safe place where they can get the services and the help and the support that they need, I think is like incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you've mentioned that early on in your role, part of working with survivors brought up your own experiences that you wanted to like heal and address as well. Can you just share with us like what some of those lived experiences were for you?
Sure. So I think it's no secret now with my team. I've worked through this in therapy. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. So sexually abused for about 4 years. And I chose to disclose at school. Funny enough, after watching a Degrassi episode, I can't really remember the episode, but like if I Google it, I'm sure it'll come up, right? And I'm like, oh, so this isn't normal, right? Propelled me into this huge DC PNP system, Division of Child Protection and Permanency. Never removed me from my home. My parents were super supportive, right? Like they believed me, right? But the system invalidated me. Like I had people that cared for me, you know, like my care team, tell my parents it's just a cry for help.
Wow.
Yeah, I it's like to this day it still bothers me,
right.
Because it definitely wasn't a cry for help. The person that did this to me was, you know, like a family member that I loved, and I had to mourn them before like their physical death, you know, because that relationship was fractured once I knew that like it's not normal for somebody to be touching me this way. And so as I started doing the work with NCST, and HVIP not so much, because everybody is some sort of physical wound, meaning shooting, stabbing, sometimes DV survivors. But when I started the work with the TRC, we had a lot of people that had complex traumas. So you would come in for DV, but then I would hear how they were, you know, they were sexually abused as children. And, you know, they had moments of sexual assault in their adulthood, and I would feel so guilty because I'm sitting across from them as someone like that's there to help them, right? And I'm a practitioner, and I have survivor's guilt. Like, I'm sorry, I, you know, made it out and you didn't, you know, because like, not to be funny, but they were textbook cases of what happens when you don't get treatment, and I felt guilty for having a supportive family. I felt guilty for being afforded the opportunities to go to school. I felt guilty for being at a place of employment that helped me and fully supported me in navigating my professional decisions, and, you know, would hold space for me if like I was actively triggered. Like, I felt really guilty about it, and that's 5 years I've been in therapy, so that's when I chose to enter therapy. But yeah, it brought up a lot of stuff working here.
Yeah. Do you, and I can ask you this question because you are a therapist. It's more so too just for my own curiosity, but do you think that sometimes survivor's guilt is tied to like a person's own deep sense of empathy?
Yeah, I'm a really empathetic person. Like, I like to tell my clients, don't worry, I haven't heard anything crazy, but you know, I do have to knock on wood because like every 3 months they really blow me out the water, right? But it's like the smallest things like I cry about. And I remember in grad school, they were like, yeah, you shouldn't cry with clients. They teach you all these like really emotionally numbing things. And I'm like,
yes.
You're
like, this doesn't
like,
feel...
I'm sorry, but if you're across from me and you're crying, guess what? I'm going to cry too. Cause like, that's just who I am. Like, I feel your pain. I feel your emotions. And it's from a place beyond academia,
right.
You know? And that's why I love this work so much, is because I know what it's like to feel uneasy going to sleep in a dark room in an unfamiliar place, because for me, that's when I would be sexually abused, right? And so I tell my staff and I tell the interns I supervise, like, hey, if you feel like you're not emotionally connecting, this is the wrong field for you, because the day you don't cry is maybe the day you need to consider a career switch.
For sure. And I think that's such an underrated comment, like all of what you just said, because there's like this way that sometimes social workers and, you know, people who do therapy are taught. It is, you know, don't get too heavily involved. And there is a place for that. But I think one thing that I've learned, especially working in CVI, is that it's the relationship ultimately that makes you successful, like in providing therapy, right? Because again, you're talking about complex trauma. Gunshot wound is complex trauma. And oftentimes, especially with the populations we serve, that's layered on top of their lived experiences, whatever that may be. So to think that someone could show up and be emotionally cold in a way and disconnected, you will probably never actually have the impact that you think you're going to have. Have you been able to interact with other clinicians in this space? Like, what is that process like for them to also get adjusted to a new way of doing therapy for gunshot victims?
So at the TRC, we have like an unspoken rule. We tend not to hire people that don't know what trauma is or haven't had it happen in their lives, because I can teach it. I train my staff. I can't teach that hurt. Like, 27-year-old me cannot put into words what 12-year-old me felt. It's the ineffable memories, the ineffable feelings, the ineffable images, the experiences that, to be a survivor, you have to know what it feels like, right? And so in doing that, it's a prerequisite. Now, when they come on, we actually believe that you need to be out in the community. This is not an ivory tower by any means. I very intentionally do not have an ivory tower program here at NCST. You need to be outside with your clients. You need to literally handhold them and walk the path that they are walking because they need the support. And when clinicians get it, it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And our clinicians get it. And then they come in and they cry. And we hold space for them.
Yep. Yep.
Because this is not easy work. Some people think we sit behind a desk and we ask, so how'd that make you feel? Or we move our fingers a little bit for EMDR, right? And that is not how it goes at all. We carry people's stories on top of ours. And we allow them to have that space too. This is healing work for the client, but it's also healing work for us.
Yeah, yeah. Do you ever get triggered like during a session? And if so, how do you navigate that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, whoa, and I think in my career it's taken me a long time to kind of come to the point where I can say, okay, that was a lot for me, but I never want to fail my client because this is my job, this isn't theirs, right? So I continue going through with the client. I acknowledge the feeling, as I think that as clinicians sometimes we can emotionally numb as well, and just wait, and then when everything hits the fan, it's like, that's when we're having our meltdowns. And so 2 things after the session, well, 3, I sit by myself, I seek out my colleagues, and I seek out clinical supervision. Sit by myself to be like, whoa, what just happened? Seek out my colleagues because I need somebody to talk to. I talk for a living, but I'm also a really talkative person. And sometimes they get it. Like, they can offer advice and they can help. It's a beautiful thing to have a colleague that's also a mental health practitioner. And then my clinical supervisor to see, like, hey, is this something I need to address in therapy? What's this countertransference I'm feeling? Like, what's going on for me? Can I process a quick trigger with you?
Yeah. Can you also just explain quickly, like, what countertransference is, just so that people understand that term?
Oh, yeah. So transference is when a client puts themselves, like, what they're going through, puts it on you, and then countertransference is like when we do the opposite, when we put it on the client and we have that connection. It happens, not necessarily the healthiest thing. Yeah.
Yes, it definitely happens.
Yeah.
And like, how do you process that? So you mentioned clinical supervision, but is there any internal work that you do as well? Because I found that sometimes when transference or countertransference happens, it's kind of like shocking. You can almost think, am I doing this wrong? Am I actually causing more harm?
Yeah.
Like, how do you address that for you?
I process it in therapy. So I make sure to write it down. And I'm like, this feels weird. And I tell my therapist, I'm like, yeah, I went to my clinical supervisor already, but like, I got to bring it here because, whoa, what's going on? Yeah. And oftentimes it's just, like I said, my clients teach me so much about myself just as much as like I help them heal. Oftentimes it's just parts of like my trauma that I haven't tapped into like really processing, right? And that part is like, whoa, like, I did that. I thought that was over with. But also, it's also one of those things where it's like, I'm not alone. Like, I have a lot of moments where my clients are like, you remind me so much of me. Like, I think to myself in session, I'm like, wow, you remind me so much of me. Yes. And I'm like, wow, I'm not alone. Trauma feels so isolating. For the longest, I thought I was the only sexually abused person to ever walk this earth. No lie. I was like, I can't believe it happened to me. But like, girl, it happens to millions of people. Like, and for the first time in my life, I was like, thank God I'm not unique. And so in that sense, like, I'm like, okay, so I'm not alone in this, but I take it to therapy. I take it to my safe space, my sounding board, depending on what's going on. Yes. And maybe therapy only. But I do take it to like people in my personal life and stuff. I like to talk through things.
Yeah, that's so good. And I'll give an example too, just to kind of point out the differences between like maybe more traditional therapy versus what we have to do in this space, right? So there are times, and this may have been your experience as well, and you kind of alluded to it, but there are times where I may be talking with a certain client and they feel like the emotional tone of the conversation and our interactions, it feels like if I were to see you at a family reunion, like, I would not question whether or not you were family. You just feel like you're in my family. And that can get challenging at times because it's almost like in a split second in the middle of a conversation, you can respond to them as though they are family. And that can, in many ways, like disrupt the relationship, and then you have to repair, right? And that, I think that repair piece is so important, especially in CVI work, because we're not always going to get it right, but the trust and the relationship is so critical to making sure that people heal, and also making sure that they come back for therapy. Right. So have you had any similar experiences?
Yeah, I think that comes up a lot with like confrontation. We have to confront a client, right? That's part of the therapeutic process. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you're doing a great job,
Yes.
when we have not made any progress in the last 3 weeks, and the only way to make progress is for you to do something differently.
Right.
So the confrontation piece is definitely uncomfortable. It's like having a serious conversation, and where it's such a relationship-based therapy session. Sometimes I sit there and I'm like, I don't know if I would like get away with this informal setting. And the fact of the matter is, I wouldn't.
Yes.
I wouldn't. But like, our clients need this kind of therapy, because they've never been exposed to therapy, and to sit and be like, and we're going to make an agenda, and let's talk about your cognitions, and this is your homework, and let me know how your behavior changed. That's not going to work for our client population at all. So when the confrontation happens, there is like a discomfort. Like, did you really just say that to me? Right? And I'll be like, listen, I want to remind you, we talked about this in the beginning, healing is not a comfortable process. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt us emotionally. We may have somatic symptoms that come up, right? Like, we may have physical hurt, but this is hard work, and I want to honor your hard work. And let's talk about your progress, and let's talk about how we can continue to make progress. And in that, the confrontation is like a little bit easier. Like, you're right, Angelica. Like, yeah, I do have to change the way I think about these things, or maybe I have to approach this differently.
Yeah, and I love that you educate your clients on that process, right? Because you're right, like a lot of clients, at least in my experience, they haven't had therapy before. So oftentimes I might be the first person that they're ever experiencing therapy with, and we want to make sure we do it right.
Yeah,
because it's high stakes, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We care, right? We're empathetic and we care. What would you say is, like, if you're thinking ahead in your role, how do you prepare for yourself? Like, how are you taking care of yourself? So if you think about, you may have a long career as a social worker. You're still very young, right? Like, what is self-care looks like as you think about moving forward in your career?
That's a great question. This year taught me a lot. Definitely prioritizing my health. I had some health challenges this year, and like, I want nothing more than to be a mom. Like, I feel like everybody knows this about me. Like, I want to be a mom so bad. And I had some challenges with that. Like, I had surgery and everything, and so I learned that this year, like, it's so funny because I could tell my staff, like, the body keeps the score, let's talk about the pain we carry. Like, I'm talking about all these books, like, all this stuff about how to take care of yourself, and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm drained. Like, I'm tired. And it's not like, oh, I need to take a nap tired. It's like, my body is screaming. Like, I had to go out from work because I couldn't get out of bed. And this isn't work. Like, I show up, I'm going to be there with you. We're going to do this together. Like, this is my passion. Like, this is literally my wildest dreams have come into reality, right? So it's about prioritizing my health, staying in therapy, being around the people I love, doing things that I love, and unplugging and not feeling guilty for that. I'm going to Ecuador to see my grandma.
Yes.
And my family, Ecuador is a developing country. My family's from a mountain village, so I'll be unplugged, but like, allowing myself that, like, I've had to learn not to feel guilty about that. Sometimes I feel guilty, like, okay, and what is this client? And like, I know they needed food, and I know they needed this, and like, I can't save the world. And finding that balance between, like, you're doing the best you can, but also, like, if you're not here, none of this can happen. Right. So I need to start putting myself first and preserving me so that I'm here.
Yes, yeah, I think that's really well said. What is one thing that you would like to highlight about your work with NCST, or just NCST as an organization in general? Like, how are they essential to the communities and the families that you all serve?
NCST is one of the only organizations that I know, and not because I work here, but like, one of the only organizations that I know that is committed to saving people's lives, and holistically saving people's lives. I don't mean like only saving you from death. Because HRI, I don't know if you're going to interview some HRI folks, high risk intervention, but they literally save people's lives. Like, they have stopped people from getting shot, like stop people from getting stabbed.
I would
like,
love to interview
yeah,
them.
they save people's lives. But we also save people's lives in the sense of we ensure that people get access to education, right? Perhaps informal, but that civic education, that advocacy education, huge. We ensure that survivors have safe places to be, right? We ensure that we connect them to safe houses, ensure that, you know, their safety is not an issue. They can lay their head to rest peacefully at night. We ensure that you get mental health care. We ensure that you feel supported in going to court. NCST is a place where, like, people are saved. And it's a place where healing is possible through, like, super multifaceted approach. It's, again, not because I work here, but it's one of my favorite places that I've ever worked. One of my staff members says it to me. It's a unicorn in terms of an employer, because the community is supported, but so are we.
Yeah, I love that. It's a unicorn. It is. And I can say, especially just getting to know some of your staff, and of course, your ED, Ray Chavis. I mean, I think that it's so clear when an organization has a good culture, right? I mean, you can kind of tell it from the people that you meet, right? And not only just a good, like, work culture, but also the impact that you're having in the community, right? Like, the fact that you can say that about the organization you work for, I think is incredible. So I so appreciate you just being willing to interview and share your story. And also, I'm pretty sure you might be our first clinician that we've
Oh, so cool.
Yes. I was telling Ray and a few other people, I was like, I need more women. I need some clinicians who are working in this space, so help me make that happen. So I appreciate you sharing your story. And then just one final question. If you had to leave like just a general message of hope for the community of Newark, and especially survivors, like, what would that message of hope be?
You deserve to live, and you deserve to heal.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
This is the Brave Space podcast. Brave Space is a healing place for gun violence prevention professionals and survivors. We meet, we process, we heal in community. Thank you.